James McGrath, who's in our Brisbane studio, LMP Senator for Queensland. James, welcome to the program.
Good to be here, Chris.
All right, I want to get you a little bit in the corner today about a few matters, and some matters involving the Treasurer. The Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, says the budget is back in balance. It's $700 million in deficit, which is an improvement of $13.8 billion from 2018-19. But the opposition has made a lot of the fact that they say the figures are nothing to celebrate. Take a look at this.
Will the Treasurer admit that the government's decision to understaff the National Disability Insurance Scheme is preventing Australians with a disability getting the care they need? Why has the government propped up its budget by deliberately underspending $4.6 billion on the National Disability Insurance Scheme?
I can confirm that there are 11,000 people helping to deliver the NDIS, and in the last year, 115,000 Australians came onto the NDIS, Mr Speaker. There are now 300,000 Australians who are on the NDIS.
James McGrath, is the Treasurer guilty of any creative accounting at all?
Not at all. And what was disappointing about today in the Senate and the House of Reps is that Labor did two things. They brought up cases of individuals who may have had concerns in relation to the NDIS. Now, when you're a politician, you shouldn't be using people as a pawn to score a political point. So it's disappointing, for example, in the Senate, that Labor frontbenchers were bringing up individual cases. If someone's got a concern about an individual, don't bring it into the Senate and cause a fuss. Don't use them as a political pawn. You speak to the minister, you write to the minister and get the situation fixed. So that was disappointing. Secondly, the NDIS is demand-driven. The money is there. We've spent we've doubled the spending on the NDIS in 2018 and 19. As the Treasurer said, there are 300,000 people on it. There's been no underspend. There have been no cuts. There is no underspend at all. The money is there.
Is it understaffed, though? One of their arguments was that it's understaffed. Is that a fair argument?
When you've got 11,000 people working in the NDIS, I don't think that's being understaffed. I don't accept that.
But that's dependent on what the demand is out there for help.
Well, it's a chicken and egg argument coming here first. I'd suggest that the demand is what drives the staffing levels rather than the staffing levels drive the demand. Right. So the more people are going to come onto the NDIS, and there's a bit of a blockage. Remember, we're shifting from a state-based system to a national system. So the more people who slowly come across from the states to the federal system, yes, you'll probably see more people employed by the NDIS. And you'll see more spending. The money is there. Yeah. It's not like we're cutting it and hiding it down the back of the kitchen cupboard.
I don't need to argue your case, nor the government's case, but I've got to say, quite often, we in the media are very quick to criticise something that's rolled out oh so quickly to make political capital, and it hasn't been done right. The T's haven't been crossed, the I's haven't been dotted, and at least this way it's done on a demand basis, and it seems as if some of the cases that could be exposed have not been many, and we haven't been deluged in the media by multiple cases of people being ripped off or not getting what they deserve. So at least they're taking it one step at a time, and in a big project like this, I'm just glad they're doing that.
Totally. And, you know, my office is in Nambour on the Sunshine Coast, and I've got a couple of cases I'm dealing with at the moment in terms of individuals who there are issues, and I'm dealing with the Minister's office, and that's what you should do as a representative of the people, is raise those concerns. But broadly out there is support for the NDIS. The money is there, and we want to help people, and it is demand-driven. We've got to remember it's also taxpayers' money. We've got to make sure we spend the taxpayers' money with care.
Absolutely. The other bad number that came out today was this higher unemployment number, and probably leading from the fact that we've lost 15,500 full-time jobs. They're not the kind of jobs that the country wants to lose.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at what the government's done since we were elected in 2013. I can give you the talking points if you want me to, in terms of that 1.4 million jobs have been created, not by the government, by business. We've created the environment to help business. you know, it is a worry that in some states, particularly my home state of Queensland, unemployment is so high. I don't want to play, pass the buck here, but state governments have a role to play here also. But also, and I'll probably get yelled at by people here, sometimes people don't want to shift to get a job. And you know, the Deputy Prime Minister has commented on this, and so have some of my other colleagues, that there are sometimes jobs in regional Queensland, in regional Australia, which people can do. And sometimes Australians just don't want to shift.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that doesn't explain why we've lost 15,500 full-time jobs.
No, well, sadly, for example, Virgin in Brisbane have going to lay off 750 people. You know, and that's bad news for Brisbane, bad news for Queensland. I can talk about what the government's doing in terms of cutting taxes, in terms of cutting red tape, trying to create that business environment. Since 2013, as I said before, we've created businesses have created 1.4 million jobs. The Prime Minister has said one of his priorities for this term of government is making sure that we create more jobs in Australia for Australians. So that figure is disappointing. I'm not going to polish that figure.
Let's hope it doesn't lead to anything worse, but we'll see within the next summary period. Now, let's talk population. Today we've learnt that there's at least one danger associated with massive population growth, which is what we're experiencing in the country. Australia is home to one of the largest temporary migrant workforces in the developed world. And the OECD warns that high inflows of migrants into low-skilled jobs might damage the labour market prospects of young, unskilled workers. I don't know about might. I think we should try the word does. It does do that, and that's one of the dangers about having, for instance, as many foreign students as we have. Despite what their visa says, they tend to gravitate towards that low-skilled job. And I know someone's got to do it, but there are low-skilled people in this country who could do with that job.
Yeah, I agree in terms of we've got to look after Australians first in terms of making sure that the environment is there for jobs. But I go back to my previous point, and I speak as someone, for example, who went over to London on a working holiday visa and did jobs over there. So it is a two-way street. And there's obviously the impact on infrastructure that you see in Sydney and Melbourne in terms of all the people shifting there. Sometimes Aussies don't want to do certain jobs. They just don't want to do it.
That's true.
And because of that, you look at why do we have a Pacific Islander scheme in terms of getting Pacific Islanders to come and pick fruit in Queensland? It's because there is a demand there. Aussies won't pick fruit, and I'm glad they come across. They're great people. They work hard. They go to church on a Sunday and they participate in the community, and then they go back after 6 months. It's a brilliant scheme, but it's a semi-skilled, unskilled job. Aussies don't want to do that, and so what you've got this 1.4 million people who are temporary migrants in Australia. I mean, they're filling a vacuum that's been left by Australians. The government has listened though. We're reducing full-time immigration, permanent immigration down to 160,000 because we want to make sure that there are jobs there for Australians. But there are some job snobs out there. I know it's not a popular thing to say, but there are job snobs there.
Australia has been banned from addressing a global climate change summit after the government refused to contribute more money to a green climate fund. Now, we were led to believe in some of the reportage today that it was because we dug up too much coal. The truth is, forget about what else you read, we haven't paid more into a green climate fund. Now, several other major economies, including the United States and Japan, they have also been blacklisted from addressing the UN in New York this week. Is the government going to lose too much sleep over this, James?
No, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it because I think the United Nations is an unfunny joke. I mean, are they having a laugh or what? This is just ridiculous. This country has done more on climate change than probably any other country in the world. Yeah. We're going to reduce our emissions by 26 to 28% of 2005 levels, and these jokers at the United Nations are saying, no, we don't want to hear from you. Get stuffed. We know.
Can you write that down in a letter and send it off to the UN on behalf of most of us, please?
It just drives you nuts because we're a good citizen in the world. We're a good country. We pay our taxes. We put the rubbish out. We do all the things you want a country to do, and they don't want to hear from us. But they'll hear from the bad neighbours down the street who have the loud parties and let the grass grow on the verge.
Yes.
I mean, the United Nations got to wake up to themselves sometimes.
Yes, I think Fiji might be guilty of listening too much to the United Nations as well. I've got to raise this with you. Senator Jackie Lambie has a plan, she says, to tackle our nation's growing demand for volunteers. That is a Senate inquiry to a national emergency service to encourage more young and unemployed people to join the volunteer ranks. James McGrath, has this got any legs at all? I'm sure she'll get her Senate inquiry, but I can't see the day, given our history of work for the dole, I can't see the day when we're getting unemployed people and making them volunteers in the case of a national emergency like a drought. I just can't see that happening, but I wish it would.
Oh, yeah, it's nice to dream, isn't it? I'm unsure whether a Senate inquiry, will solve anything. But I'll give you a story. I was in Stanthorpe on Tuesday. I flew up with David Littleproud. I live in Warwick in the Darling Downs. And we went and looked at the bushfires that almost destroyed Stanthorpe. And we met with the people who are involved in fighting the fires, and they were telling us that there are high school students from Stanthorpe High who are part of the volunteer force there, who are out fighting fires on all through Friday night into Saturday morning. Isn't that just brilliant? The kids are out there doing
fantastic.
That. Sometimes you can't. It's just fantastic. It's a great story. You can't force people. You can take a horse to water, but sometimes you can't force it unless you sort of whack it over the head sometimes, and you sort of can't do that with people, sadly. So I think a part of it is it's encouraging us as adults, as educators, as a politician, you as a journalist and commentator, to encourage people to get involved with the local groups. Because it's not just young people. You look at the PNFs, the Zontas, the Rotaries. They're all having a lack of volunteers come along because people think civic society now is liking something on Facebook, or if they're particularly outraged, getting on a website and leaving a comment. Well, whoop-de-doo-dah.
It's nothing like it.
Those kids from Stanthorpe.
It's nothing like it. You make a very good point. Can I just say also, if I'm in the middle of a bushfire or a flood and it's my property or my neighbour's property or my family's property, I want someone standing next to me, fighting the fire, saving the family from a flood, that has skin in the game, that really wants to be where they are put and wants to save people of their ilk, rather than someone shipped in from a capital city somewhere that doesn't give a damn about volunteering and is there against their will.
Yeah, and it's just waiting to clock off at 11 p.m. and finish their timesheet or whatever like that, just so they can get the dole for the next week. So no, I don't like forcing people to do things. I think we can encourage people to do things, and I think people should get involved with community. Sam McMahon, who gave her maiden speech, a new Northern Territory Senator during the week, said her main lesson in life was encouraging people to get involved with local organisations. Yeah. She went up to the Territory as a young vet when she was like 20, 21, and those organisations made her the woman she is today. And we've got to push that. We've got to push the good story rather than getting the baton and whacking people.
And can I just say to people who may not volunteer as much as they want to, or may not volunteer in charitable circumstances, you and I do a heap of that sort of stuff, and the truth is you get such a personal kick out of helping other people. It is such a buzz, and we shouldn't be ashamed of getting a buzz out of it either, should we, James? Because it's win-win for both sides.
Totally. It's a legal high that you can get, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, good stuff. James McGrath, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Anytime. Toodaloo.